Hello and welcome. It is 6 o'clock and it is the 6 o'clock club. Um, Christian has changed. No, he hasn't. Hi, I'm Andy from Twisted Narrative. It is 6 o'clock. It is Wednesday and it is the 6 o'clock club. I am joined tonight by Michael. If you were watching on Sunday, you would have seen some of the inspirational statements Michael made as his character. Do you want to say a quick hi and introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Michael. I'm blurred for your enjoyment rather than HD. Yeah, I enjoyed playing on Sunday. That was grand.
Yeah, I think the blurring is really, it's a little bit like V for Vendetta. We're not at liberty to actually show your true identity or form because
Would involve sand rolls, so don't. Yeah.
um yay. So we're here at 6 o'clock. Um we are going to, as it says in the description, we're going to talk about last weekend's game. We haven't had the opportunity. Normally we do it on Monday, and big shout out to people in chat at the moment, including Leprechaun, who basically said, I really missed the recap on the weekend's games. So we're going to be doing that tonight. We're going to talk about last night's Blades in the Dark game. I'm still very sort of hyped about that. And we're going to talk about tonight's game as well. A big shout out to Elsa as well, who is in chat, and anybody else who is here. So first and foremost, we'll talk about very briefly tonight's game, because I like to do name checks to our community that are playing in the game. So tonight's game, it's not an actual play. It's just a straightforward one. We'll be using Fantasy Grounds Unity as our virtual tabletop. It is Fortunes Untold, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and they're about to set off on this sort of slightly salt marshy tropical island to go into the interior to seek out a witch. This witch supposedly has the power to bottle ships, real sized ships, and somehow shrink them down and trap them into bottles. The characters see this as a definite bonus, as they are attempting to go against the Revelry, which are the sort of pirates of the inner sea of fallen stars. So this, if they can convince, if they can learn this technique or whatever, this technique is going to be of use to them. So they think anyway, and that is what they're doing. So tonight's game should hopefully involve Felicity, Roz, James, and Adrian, and I'm quite excited to see where it goes. I like swampy, marshy environments, and I certainly like witches, so it's going to be a fun one. I will tell you how they went on tomorrow night in tomorrow night's 6 o'clock club. Then we will reflect now, and it seems a very long time ago, but on last weekend's games. And Friday is the weekend, so we'll talk about collateral damage first and foremost, of which Michael here is a player. I'll do a name check first. There is Michael, there's Ben, there's Charlotte, there's V, Stuart, Ryan, and Richard. But you do a bit of talking first, Michael. Tell me. I keep. It's difficult for me to sum collateral damage up due to its level 18 5th edition D&D, and I say how much I enjoy my Friday nights with you. It's a weekly game, and it we kick back a little bit, and it feels very much like the players have had a long working week, and Friday nights is the perfect opportunity to throw some dice, have some fun, and a few beers, which is, a perfect role playing environment. But I don't think we've had a player on as yet, 6 o'clock club, from collateral damage. Speaking about collateral damage, that is. Um, tell me what you think, what you really think. Um, um,
See, tempted, given my character, but from a legal standpoint, Andrew, I don't think there's a number of things we can't discuss about collateral damage for fear of repercussions.
mm,
Um, it's it doesn't feel like 18th level, and I
nah,
think that's one of its real strengths. It feels like what it is, a group of individuals um, occasionally coming together to sort of aim in a particular direction. Um, it's tricky for us, I think. Note I'm even using collective us rather than Zahi's usual them. It's their problem. We're having to bring something about which could take a lot of time. And so rather than it being we're going to solve a thing and then move on and solve another thing, there's a bit of a longer step to do. And I think last week's session was about a number of different things.
mm,
Um, it's the best example of 16th level wizard taking 2 levels in fighter, and hoo-ha, he is now gung-ho. He is in plate mail and he will go out and realize plate mail isn't all it could be cracked up to be. So I really, from a distance, because my character wasn't involved in the combat that took place, it was nice to watch. And then the coming out going, what did we leave for? We only were there for a round, and the poor barbarian has gone from 160 down to, 20 hit points in one round. And the terribly gung-ho, strangely related to him, wizard, is going, we could have taken him. We could have taken the guy that can disappear and fall into walls and appear and attack us at will. So I
it,
thought it was great fun.
it was interesting because I mean, the character that was investigating this individual, code name Gargoyle, um, he'd already been responsible for killing quite a well, one would assume another powerful mage, and taking his robe of the archmage, which one would assume he was relatively powerful. He'd also uncovered quite a lot of horrific descriptions of how people had been petrified or dragged into the rock and obliterated. And what really surprised me is when the encounter happened, everybody was kind of surprised that that was happening. It was like, I know what I'll do is I'll pretend to be a miner and I'll start chipping away at the stone. And it was like, okay, I'm going to feel really rough about this, but you've just told him exactly where you are. Um, and he's just going to pull you into the stone. It was a good job. It was our resident barbarian
Yeah.
because at 18th level they are super tough. But I think it was about 150 odd hit points he lost in the first round of combat, which would have been enough to floor any, not instant kill, but floor most of the other sort of players. And of course, he has this ability as well to merge with stone, does the gargoyle. So after he made his attacks, he just withdrew into the rock, and there was, ah, can we target him? And it's like, no, he's in the rock.
There was
Um,
it was the sound of rapid flapping to let me see. No, a target you can see.
yes.
Target you can see. Target you can, damn it. So,
What can he hear then? Well, I don't know because he's like in the rock. I think. Let me have a look at the description of when you are pulled into the rock. It says blinded and deafened. So I guess that's a no then. It was quite harsh. But I don't feel mean because I had telegraphed the kind of thing they might well be up against, and in many ways, our fighter wizard that is very keen to get his mitts on this robe um, was going to try and solo it, which would have been very
oh,
interesting. Which would have been very very interesting. But I mean, it goes to show that even at the higher levels, if you don't listen sometimes to the actual thing, the information that you have just sought out, it can rapidly turn bad. And I think one of the real sort of problems with high level, not so much in fifth edition, but certainly in older editions and certainly in the older sort of Pathfinder, is at high levels it tends to be very much a hit and kill, or miss and don't do anything. It was very much a kind of, well, you better succeed before they do, because they're going to hit you with things that don't mess around. Things like, power word kill. If your hit points are a certain level, a certain number, it just kills you. Um, they're kind of almost instant kill effects, which is why um, Death Ward and Bless and all of these other sort of buffs are very important at those higher levels, because there's a lot of effects that can just sort of take you down, sort of more or less instantly. Um, I digressed a bit from talking about this weekend's games, but it's a very, very interesting one. I kind of learnt a lot by that encounter as well. Um, it certainly didn't go the way that I was anticipating it to, but that is the way it is. Hopefully, the characters have learnt, and they might want to go round two with the gargoyle, and it should go substantially better next time. But it is collateral damage. It's a really fun game. People like to kick back, and who knows, after a few beers, what will be remembered about last week's session. um, um, so, do you want to add anything else there, Michael, on the game? Or
No,
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 no.
I just think that we've had lots of interesting, challenging encounters which haven't been, let's just amp up the stuff. One of the recent ones that you gave us had creatures that by themselves weren't that tough. If they got to you, they injected you, and there was no save, and you became possessed by some gribbly creature. That made for a far more tense session than a normal bunch of level 17s would have, with lots of range stuff and lots of protective things, with what on paper is gnolls, but a bunch of gnolls that you cannot afford to have hit you
Yeah,
more than a couple of times. So it was nice, and the darkness effects on that as well, without giving too much away. It wasn't, oh, I've got to stat things through the roof. You don't. You just play smart as a GM, and that's always been one of the fun bits.
yeah.
Going, oh, you so and so.
No, I think especially with fifth edition where it is now, and it's a substantially different game than where it was when it first came out. Um, you can create incredibly powerful characters. Some people might say overpowered. I don't think that's the case. They are substantially more powerful than the vanilla characters that came out sort of a number of years ago. But I feel as my job as a GM is not to go, don't play that character, it's too strong. It's for me then to sort of think and sort of work out how we can challenge these characters. Um, and that's not sort of picking on a character every session because there's one specific weakness and haha, the only thing that they are sort of can be damaged by is psychic damage, so everything now is going to be psychic damage from that. That's not what I mean, but it's how can you make encounters challenging and interesting, not punishing, for these very, very powerful characters. We'll come on to another game in a minute because our Sunday Mythical game has got some incredibly good builds in it. Very, very good, and it's very challenging. But we'll come on to that in a minute because we actually ran that on Sunday. So we jump into Saturday. Saturday was a busy day for me, as they usually are. We had Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which Michael used to play in. Unfortunately, time commitments meant that you had to sort of drop. But we've got Ian, Pete, Jocelyn, and Josh and Richard in that at the moment. And it's great fun. There was a lot of role playing sort of going on, and I think it's and if you are still around in chatty and you can clarify this, but I think it's the first Dungeon the Mad Mage session where you had a massive info dump of information because you allied yourself with one of these mages, and as you prepare to descend down to the next level, you've got a fair amount of information to act upon. I'm just going to check chat because I have to switch from this. Death ward work versus power word kill. What's the wording on them both? Um, a question: does Death Ward work on power? I believe so. I mean, I would certainly allow Death Ward to work on power word kill, but I would have to look that up. Death Ward has got something like when you reduce to 0 hit points. I don't think power word kill. I mean, I don't know. It's something that I would have to look up to clarify. But as a rule of cool, I don't. I'm not a fan of instant kill effects. Just as I'm not a fan of instant resurrections, I'm not a fan of instant kill effects. I think they both go hand in hand. One of the reasons why you have powerful resurrections and raised deads is because you have these crazy death magics that can take down a player, and it's like, bang, you're dead. Okay, well, we've got a cleric, so no, I'm not. And it's a game. I totally understand the premise behind them, but it feels much more like we're playing a board game or a video game rather than a role-playing game. Of I would much prefer, and this is my own crazy mixed up mind, a death spell that basically says you will die unless a resurrection spell is cast upon you. So change the names of them so that you have that chance to respond as a reaction or something instead. It's mechanically the same, but it just kind of sits better. I suppose cinematically with me, it would be a very interesting movie, if like quarter way in, some of the main protagonists gets killed, but then they get raised and then they do another fight and get killed again. It's kind of like, well, you know, uh, I think it interrupts the cinematic somewhat. Um, but that was Dungeon and Mad Mage. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed the info drop. And then we come on to the 1 o'clock Saturday game, Greyhawk Unbound, which has got Wayne, Simon, John, and Al in. And as I say, this is fifth edition, but it's old school. The players have played sort of second editions, and they like that style of play. It's not so much a sort of dungeon bass, but it's got that feeling of friends being around the table and having a sort of banter. There's no player versus player at all, but it's all kind of sort of winding each other up and stuff in a nice way. And it's just got a really nice old school sort of feel to it. And I very much love that game. Um, so much so I can't honestly. Oh yeah, they are descending down and doing. They're investigating a terrible murder at the moment. That is what they're doing. Then we've got Tales from the Smoke. We ran it with Cara, Kyle, Marcus, and Ben, and again, really nice to return to the smoke. And there might be a little bit of an announcement at the end of the stream about the smoke. But really good fun. Fifth edition. As I say, they are investigating these arcane weird scientists that might well be in league with the Intelligentsium, and the more that they find out information, the worse it gets. Um, so that went really well. Really lovely game. I love the smoke. Obviously, I love it because it's my homebrew setting, so I've put my heart and soul into it. But yeah, fantastic game, and thank you very much, the four of you, for playing in it. And then Saturday night was larger than life Spelljammer. Cosmic Rain. This is a 12th level game. We've got Jack, we've got Sky, and we've got Adam in it. And I think I might have gone a little too big too soon in this game. As I said, the players played in Icewind Dale. They didn't overly wanted to sort of. They finished the campaign, but they didn't want to play those characters. But they didn't really want to start at level 1, so we did a little prologue session with them being at level 8, and then we jumped them forward to level 12. But they've uncovered basically a cosmic level threat, a threat that even at level 12 they just feel, yeah, this this is not our pay grade at all. Um, and I knew they weren't going to handle it immediately, but I kind of wanted to put that pressure of that threat upon them, and it might have stymied them a little bit in terms of, well, we don't know what to do, we don't know what we want to do. But this session, fortunately, has readdressed the balance there, and now they've managed to escape this threat. They're aware of it, and it is them deciding how they're going to deal with it. It's very Guardians of the Galaxy to my mind, or will be. It's very psychedelic, Spelljammer. Got a completely sort of unique feel. The characters and the players are absolutely amazing, and I think they're on board with it now, rather than going, we don't know what to do. Um, but a great game. Long may it continue. Then we jumped to Sunday. We had two games on Sunday, Mythical and Eberron. Mythical I kind of hinted at and touched on. There are, because Mythical is, oh, you did things then, Michael. Hopefully that wasn't me. Um, um, Mythical is a very high fantasy setting. Everybody gets basically cantrips and a first level spell, regardless of the class you are. Magic items are fairly commonplace, so everything drops down a tier. So you can do some crazy optimal builds fairly early on, and now characters are between 5th and 8th level. People have embraced it and gone for some very, very powerful builds. And it's quite challenging, enjoyable, sort of challenging. Um, they decided on an interesting method of attack. Um, Stealthing with fireballs, I think, should be the title of the last session. Um, but some exceptional play, some great tactics, some very good use of abilities, and they nailed it. There was um, uh, a, a villain, a mercenary captain that was, I thought he was as hard as nails, and he was really. In transparency, he had 200 hit points. He had 5 attacks. He had 2 greatsword attacks and 2 claw attacks, and then a poisonous tail attack. He also had action surge, so he could have done 10 attacks in a single round. But the monk went straight in there with its Eldritch Claw tattoo. He stunning striked him, so I went, that's fine, because this guy's got Indomitable. It's got a good con. We'll re-roll that. I didn't want to make him legendary because that was too much. He wasn't a legendary character. So yeah, haha, he's got Indomitable. Re-roll again. Oh, that's a fail as well. At this point, none of the players knew that he had actions. He hadn't really acted. He hadn't done anything. In fact, other than turn up, got punched in the face, got stunned, and then got annihilated. It was beautiful play. It was very very cool to sort of see. And then I wanted to let the characters know that he was this powerful and they'd actually done incredibly well, because I don't often like to show from behind the screens, but it it, it, it allows me to do a couple of things. One, to congratulate the players and well done, but also to telegraph that there are out there some quite meaty
Mm.
NPCs, because um, the world is high fantasy. There are these really great builds of characters, but there are some great builds of NPCs as well that they will be coming across. Um, but they sort of nailed it, and they haven't really used all their resources up. So this was the outer perimeter. They've now got to go into the dungeon and deal with the thing. But it was incredible play and a kind of pleasure to sort of watch. Really, it was the division of character spread as well. There was like three incredibly optimized combatives that went one way and three not. But the three not were very good at healing and doing all of that kind of thing. So the three combatives fortunately took on the champion. Um, and they killed. There was piles of bodies everywhere. Whereas on the other side, I think they killed like two things in the same sort of time. But they also managed to rout some cultists and also summon a water elemental to deal with another two of these things. So it was almost like two different styles of combat going on, both perfectly acceptable, both doing the job, but in different ways. It was very interesting to run that encounter. Just going to check chat again. Um, so yeah, because Leprechaun was saying, right, Leprechaun is off now, but Leprechaun said it was epic. Yeah, it was crazy. It was very very cool to be running. And then we had our Eberron game, which has got Jenny, Jocelyn, Rachel, Tony, and Christian. It's a weekly game, very similar to, well, exactly the same as Collateral Damage in the fact that it's a weekly game. The two games are completely different other than that. Um, and yeah, uh, one of the characters is or was a warlock with a Fey patron. The Fey patron was very manipulative and not the nicest of patrons. Um, and that toxic relationship has been broken now, and she's got, and well, he, because the character is male, um, has got a new patron now. Um, but it was really interesting because their character had to do some quite intense negotiations and manipulations with a different character, a sort of monster hunter by the name of Valentin, um, and they had to persuade them and find a way of releasing him from his Gaius that the big bad had put upon him. And it was really fun to see, because the other characters had to, basically, it was Cyrano de Bergerac, or Roxanne, if you like, the Steve Martin movie based upon the book.
Sure.
And it was really interesting because there was Minty that was doing the talking, but there was a telepathic link, and all the other players were trying to direct the conversations as well. So that was a wonderful encounter, and they succeeded and worked it out, and that was super super good to see. So hopefully that has been interesting. It was Leprechaun that asked me to recap the games, which we have done now. No game on Monday night, and that brings us to last night's game. Blades in the Dark, a game that I wasn't running, but I had the honour and pleasure to play in. If you haven't watched it yet, it's Blades in the Dark. I will be putting the link down in the description and the comment section below. Please check it out. I don't know. It's a very fun to play. Michael, you watched it?
Yeah, I thought it was great. It was haven't watched all of it, but the bits I watched, I was drawn into for the period of time I could be there. Very descriptive, very evocative, very different from say the previous one which you spoke about a bit before the call. Um, yeah, I think if the dice tell a story, those dice hate those players for the largest portion. Like we were discussing, it's very heisty, it's very tense, it's very what it's meant to be. So I liked it. I like games which have flashbacks in. I think sometimes they stop analysis paralysis, and you can just sort of say, "Well, actually, we did this," and
Yeah.
yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I suppose December, leaning into January, because of the Wizard of the Coast thing with the OGL and stuff, and outside of that as well, I was one of my not quite New Year's resolutions, but one of the things I wanted to achieve in 2023 is to incorporate more different systems than Fifth Ed. Not because I don't like Fifth Ed, I love it. It's done a lot for me. But there's a lot of very cool systems out there as well, and it seems almost a crime to just ignore them. It also seems kind of lazy of me. You know, it, you can get into a groove or a rut that you're familiar with the system, you know it inside and out. Uh, it's kind of fit for purpose. It's the biggest game in the world, role play wise, so there are plenty of players. And as someone who ticket seats at a table, that that is a kind of easy route to get players basically. Um, I've always said and been open about it. I can advertise a D&D game and get players within an hour, sell the table out. If I do it for like another fantastic system that is uh, very well known, like Call of Cthulhu, it might take me a couple of days to get the players into it. Um, so I've kind of perhaps rested on my laurels a little bit. But with the discussion of the OGL and the discussion of is Fifth Ed as good as everybody believes it to be, I think the answer to that is it's vanilla. If you like fantasy um, role playing and you like combat, if you like to be a fantasy superhero that is going to win through the day, it's very good at doing that. There are other systems such as Pathfinder 2 that do it equally as well. I'm not going to get into one game is better than the other. I think they've got swings and roundabouts, but that is more or less what it's designed to do.
Yeah,
Um, Whereas if you want to play a heist game, yeah, you can kind of go Blades in the Dark is really good. So I'm going to draw some of those elements out of Blades of the Dark and incorporate them into Fifth Ed. But it's still not Blades in the Dark. It's still there are
yeah.
some rules and mechanics in Fifth Ed that don't gel with that Blades in the Dark thing. So it's kind of there, but it's not as good as a heist as it could have been if you'd done Ram Blades in the Dark, if you see what I mean. If you want to run a horror based game and you want it to be horrific and you want it to be sanity draining, yeah, you can put sanity into a D&D game, and um, but it's not like
I
playing
think
Call of Cthulhu.
mm, I
Sorry.
think that's the best. That's the best example. I didn't want to deviate away from Blades in the Dark, but the best example is you can have Asta and the yellow sign and things like that as part of D&D, but it is not the same as having a Call of Cthulhu game.
Yeah.
And there's reasons for that, and they're too myriad to go through. And it's not just the mechanics; it's the whole sort of ethos.
Well, yeah.
Um, so
Sorry.
if I had a wish list, I'd say if we could sometime have a live Call of Cthulhu game, I think that might attract some people in who want to see what it's like and seeing a really horror-based game.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, you can have. I mean, you did the asylum thing for us, and that was wonderful, and it was scary. But at the end of the day, we had spell slots
Yeah.
and we had teleport, and it wasn't. We need to find out information, but finding that information could actually kill us.
Yeah.
Um, it's a very different sort of type of playing. So yeah, I think showing some of those, getting people to sort of see before they dip their toes in, so to speak, and see what the kind of experience it is
Yeah.
probably the best way to attract people to the games.
Well, it's funny you should say that. Funny you should
We
say that.
didn't practice this. This wasn't
No,
in the
no, no, no.
rehearsal.
So the reveal is I'm gonna flip it as it were, really. So the smoke, a fantasy game. Traditionally, I've used Fifth Ed to do, uh, but there are aspects of the smoke that are easily transferable into other systems. So for the very first smoke actual play, I'm going to use Call of Cthulhu. So it's going to be a Call of Cthulhu game set in the environment of the smoke. It's going to be a one shot and it's going to be a week today. So next Wednesday night, I should hopefully, if the technology works, be able to do this. It doesn't tell you very much. Tales from the Smoke, YouTube, live actual play coming soon. The coming soon, I'll sort out a new graphic for it is going to be Wednesday. Wednesday, I'm just looking at the dates, the 8th of March. Um, and we're going to be playing Call of Cthulhu for the first one. I've got a number of these lined up to test out different systems. I've got in mind Vassen, which is perhaps even more in keeping with the smoke. It's a fantasy, it's a folklore-esque kind of 1800s kind of role play experience. But there is from our community, I think, a keenness to experience more of the smoke, and I think with Call of Cthulhu, it's going to be an interesting one. Yeah, don't expect wizard battles. Don't expect lots and lots of fantasy. Expect Victorian steampunk and horror. The players will be normal people who get put into a very non-normal situation. Um, so the shadows will fall upon the smoke, not totally in the dark, because we'll probably do a Blades in the Dark at some point as well. But I didn't want to do that next week because we just did it this week as well. So I'm very excited about that. You are the first to hear about it all. I kind of hinted at it previously. I'll be chatting to people in our green room. On our Discord server, we've got something called the green room, which is people that are interested to be in the actual plays. Um, and we will open up a number of spaces and see. I can't do this by myself. Well, actually, I technically could. I could just tell you a horror story, but it won't be anywhere near as fun than seeing the horror upon the faces of our cast for that. So fingers crossed, we've got a number of players that we can make this work. Um, how does that sound? Are you excited about that, Michael?
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Maybe just let me just go back to the green room and sign up to that. No, I think that's a brilliant idea. I think it's a good idea to have one
yeah,
setting, lots of different styles of games, lots of different. You can still interweave them. So the terrible end, which will no doubt come about, on Wednesday to the poor participants can be a hook for someone else to come and invest.
Yeah,
There's just so much that you can do with this, with the different styles of games, from very combat heavy to heisty to horror to whatever. So yeah, I've not heard of anyone doing it before. I think it's a really good idea. It's shown that there's a lot more to a city than
yeah.
one type of play can encompass.
Well, urban environments, I've always believed that they're kind of a rich sort of seam of narrative, basically. And what what is different is I alluded to what a lot of people do is take fifth edition D&D and shoehorn in um, other systems. Oh, you've gone. Hopefully you're still on audio anyway, Michael.
Sorry.
Don't apologise. It's fine. We This is the great thing about 6 o'clock club. Um, it's a club. It's people who don't necessarily have all of the technologies, but they are great members of our community. And we're a club. We're all in it together. We're all having fun. The same with the actual players and the like. Um, so don't worry about it. No need to apologise. Um, when YouTube is paying me $1 bajillion for streaming, I will be handing it out. I'll be going, Michael, here you go, buy yourself a webcam or a new internet. I don't think it is your webcam, is it? It's just
No, no,
internet.
it's very much the internet,
Yeah.
as you
What we need
know
to
from my
do,
robot
yeah,
voices at sort of 7:30 every game, as America fully wakes up and my internet is drowned.
absolutely. No, so we're all in it together. So that is going to be taking place, I say a week today, which I'm super excited about. Um, so yeah, Blades in the Dark. Sorry, I'll finish. Again, the club is all about tangents, and we have lots of tangents. You mentioned it, and I didn't want to. I didn't want. It seemed to be the perfect opportunity to mention about what was going on there. So last night's game, totally enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my characterization. I don't know whether it came across because I alluded to it a few times. And I don't know whether I was too subtle about it, quite possibly. But my backstory was I got bit by a rabid Jack Russell in the gutters as a younger person, and I totally believe that Jack Russell was a were Jack Russell, and I was a lycanthrope, but not fully formed. So that was all the nonsense about the barking and the sniffing um, and the
Your pack.
shenanigans and my pack. Yeah, I
Yeah,
kind
no,
of.
no, it was picked up. It was picked up.
I don't know how clear it was. Whether people just thought I was uh, some kind of lunatic with some kind of defect, but no, there was rationale behind it. I didn't actually mention that to the GM, of course. I just had it all in my own head canon. I wasn't going to call upon any abilities outside of the um, the game anyway with it. Um, but I thought it was an interesting sort of twist. Um, but yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you again to everybody that played in it, and Christian, of course, for running it. The players was Sarah, Rachel, and Matt. I'm going to put that in the link as well. The link rather in the thing. So if you can't find it on our YouTube channel, you can just be lazy and click on it, give it a watch, let us know. Because we want to improve as well. That's the thing, is not necessarily about the Blades in the Dark game itself, but the kind of things you liked. Did you like the break? Did you like us chatting in the break? Would you like more break? Would you prefer us not to do a 6 o'clock club? Would you prefer us like to do a proper pre-show where we kind of chat, or would you prefer us to start early and then have a post-show? Where because people have got work commitments and everything else, so what I'm trying to do is finish at 10 o'clock, so it's reasonable for people that are in the game to go, thank you very much. But we could start it half an hour earlier, get play to 9:30, and then have a chat after the game, a post game chat. I'm open to all sorts of suggestions and ideas, some of which I might take on board, some of which I might steal and pretend they are my ideas, and some of which I will probably just ignore. Um, I like to be honest. um, um, but that's why you all love me. Talking of love, please, if you haven't already, give us a subscribe and a like. I think that's pretty much it for tonight. I'm jumping into Fortunes Untold in quarter of an hour. Have you got any last comments to make?
I think Odley, and we hadn't talked about this before, which is ominous enough.
Yeah.
One of the things I really liked about Blades in the Dark, and this was just something I happened upon when I sort of switched it on. It's nice when characters add to the background by what they're doing, even if they're not interacting entirely with the rest of the players. And I have to say, I really liked you sat there eating your sandwich.
Mm,
There was just something about that. You're not interacting, but you're adding something to it. It's telling people something about your character. You brought your own sandwiches that you're happy to sit there eating. And it's just sometimes you could do more of that as players, I think. And that's not telling anyone how to play. But it doesn't have to be about making noise. Sometimes you just sit there and, in some of the games that, I'm in, there are people doing knitting.
yeah.
There are people who always do a certain thing in a certain way. And either it gets you into the headspace or it just adds a bit more than they're just, oh, you're a wizard with this level. No, you're that guy who, or that girl that, or that woman who. And no, I just liked it. I only sort of went in past and I didn't see much. I think they were all doing a thing.
Yeah.
You were waiting for them to finish, and I believe you had ultimate confidence in the rest of the party,
Well,
which told me everything I needed to know about what was happening with the dice. And so I was able to drift away going, yep, dice still doing the thing. But it was just this image of someone sat there wherever, eating a sandwich, watching the rest of his pack do
I,
their thing. That
yeah.
was nice. Those are the kind of images that sometimes stick with you as much as the big flashbang things. It's the quiet bits as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I enjoy characterization, and as far as I was concerned, they were the professionals of sneaking, they were the professionals of schmoozing, and they were the professionals of cracking heads together. None of which was needed from me. So I did my bit. I sniffed out the ghost, and um, I mean, I love the lore of Blades in the Dark, and Blades in the Dark lore is, and Christian sort of changed it slightly for for flavour, which was absolutely fine. But one of the things is that most of the population just eat kind of reconstituted fungi. Because it's kind of grown into that. The city itself is sealed off with this massive electro field to stop the ghosts from outside getting into the city. So food is scarce, and one of the things I wanted to sort of play up is, if you can get a meal, you get a meal. So I have to say, Christian played a blinder. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but the fact that the sandwiches were hard and everything else, no spoilers, but watch it to the end. I thought that was an absolute blinder. I'm not going to say anything else. But it is well worth watching the last bit. But it's worth watching it all so you get all of that. And he seeded the story with quite a lot of that as well. So that was very, very cool. Brilliant. So thank you very much, Michael, for joining me tonight. It makes it so much more fun for me to chat rather than just babble on about things. So I really appreciate it. Um, Thank you to everybody that's hung out in chat. Again, really, really appreciate you. Thank you if you're watching this on catch up as well. I hope the recap has been interesting. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you don't like. Let us know more questions, particularly in Discord. Really appreciate it. So, without further ado, I'm going to shout good night to you all. Thank you very much. I will be back again tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and I believe Jack will be my co-star tomorrow night. We'll be talking about tonight's game, probably talking about the Cthulhu smoke actual play, and we'll probably leaning into answering some of the questions that people have left into Discord. So all to watch for. In the meantime, have a great evening. Take care of yourselves. Look after each other. We'll catch you all later. It's bye from me.
Cheers. Have a good night.